and that's it. That's it. Other than that, Allison, my wife, she does all the shopping for all the other family and whatever friends we buy for. What about you?
So, well, wait a minute, Tim. Wait a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
You got two gifts to buy, right? Two gifts.
I got two. Yeah,
So how we doing?
I bought one.
All right, so 50%. You're halfway there.
I bought one out. I bought one. So my mom, I bought one for my mom with the help of my wife.
Of course.
She went with me to the place to buy my mom's gift, because it's a lady,
Right.
It's a lady's gift, and I wanted to make sure.
Okay, because I do this. Do you
Yeah.
ever ask Allison for some hints? Honey, what would you like for Christmas?
Yeah, it's fun. If you've been married long enough, you get to this point where you say, "Why don't we just get you that for Christmas?"
Yes, we've done that. Yes.
Yeah, so she had an outfit she liked the other day at a store, and she said, "I'm going to buy this."
And you said Merry Christmas.
I didn't. Yeah, I said, "Why don't we just count that as your Christmas present?" She said, "Okay."
Yeah. Wrap
Done.
it up. Wrap
Done.
it up and
Done.
act surprised.
I don't
That's
know.
right.
I probably. What about those times when you say to your you say to your wife, or wife says to the husband, most times, so we're going to just skip Christmas? Yeah, we'll just, let's don't spend money on each other. We'll use it for a vacation or something like that. And then lo and behold,
That's always the wrong answer.
I know. And then lo and behold, on Christmas morning or whatever, when the other
Right.
family members get around, I just
right.
thought I'd get you a little something. Oh,
Right.
good. Got me a little something, and I'm here in front of everybody with nothing for you because we agreed.
We agreed.
We agreed not
had
to
an
buy each other
understanding.
anything, and now you got me this little sweater
That's
or whatever.
when you say my presence is
Right,
the present. Yes.
My presence is the present.
Yeah.
Yeah, that goes over well.
That does, yeah.
Anyway, so what about you? Who do you buy for?
Well, for
Shop
my
for.
wife, mostly.
Yeah,
No, why should I lie on national
I
radio?
know, right? There's no
Why
point
should
in it,
I lie
right.
before the Lord and national radio?
Right,
I
right.
buy for one person only for my wife, and because she takes care of, she starts weeks in advance and takes
Sure.
care of the kids and the grandkids and other friends and stuff like that. And so we had this agreement. We had exactly the same agreement. We weren't going to do much this year, but you got to cover your bases, right, Fred?
That's
you
right.
Can't, you got to cover yourself to be ready. So,
Right. Oh, so, okay.
I got a couple of gifts, and a third one is supposed to arrive in the mail today. They sent it. I ordered it 2 weeks ago on the coming back from that cruise. I ordered it, and sitting in a restaurant in Miami, and they sent it to the wrong city, the wrong suburb here in Kansas City.
Really?
Yes, and I'm hoping that it arrives later.
Why? How you know that you got it? You tracking
Yes,
number?
yeah, I got that tracking number, and it's like
Well, at
10
least there's
miles
a
from-
tracking number on it. In
That's
the
right.
old days, there wasn't.
There
Yeah.
was no right. You're just hoping and praying.
You just
something
got together
shows
and
up.
prayed.
That's
Lord,
right.
Yeah.
it's in your hands.
Make this. Please make this
Been there
present
and done that too.
arrive on time.
Hey, you have not because you ask not.
Hey, by the way, related to that, on there's some Amazon, Chris, Amazon employees on strike in New York and where else?
New York is kind of the ground zero of this, if you will. It's the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Said workers at 7 Amazon facilities began a strike today, an effort by the union to pressure the e-commerce company for a labor agreement during a key shopping period. The Teamsters say the workers authorized the strike in the past few days, and they're joining the picket line after Amazon ignored a December 15th deadline the union set for contract negotiations. The Teamsters represent about 10,000 workers at 10 Amazon facilities, so it's not every Amazon warehouse. Our state has like 3 or 4 now.
Well, what is that, Fred? What does that mean, though? I mean, good night. Seems to me
Yeah,
like I mean, if you that could interrupt a lot of Amazon's business, though, right?
It could at a very critical period, but as the story says that we have on AFN.net right now, the Teamsters represent a certain group of Amazon employees. The folks that drive the trucks around and deliver it to your door are not Teamsters union people. So if your package, for instance, if your package is out today for delivery, you'll get it. But if it has to go through one of these centers that's on strike, depending on how long this goes, sometimes the Teamsters will do what's called rotating strikes. You know, these folks in New York will be out today, and then maybe it'll be somewhere else.
Yeah.
So it is going to disrupt. You're just going to have to use your tracking numbers, as we were just talking about, to see where your package is.
To better answer your question, President Wildman, the strikes happening today are taking place at one Amazon warehouse in San Francisco and 6 delivery stations in Southern California, New York City, Atlanta, and Skokie, Illinois.
Boy, that's right. It's kind of confusing to know about. I guess it has to do with what states are union and what states are right to work.
And they're picking the big cities, L.A.,
Yeah.
San Francisco, Atlanta,
Big hubs.
of course, Chicago, right, New York. Well, of course, the big cities where the union would be the strongest too. So, I guess we're saying to people, because a lot of our listeners use Amazon, because people do, right? I mean, we do.
Well, it's a way of life now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check your tracking numbers, people.
Yes.
But be aware if you're going to send something like today.
Right.
Let's say you're going to send something. If I live in Mississippi and I'm going to send something to, I don't know, Buffalo, then it may get hung up in New York. That's a possibility,
Very true.
right?
Correct.
It's kind of so. Is that? But would that wouldn't involve? Would that involve UPS or FedEx or somebody like that?
Not with this particular situation.
Okay.
They do have their own labor disputes from time to time, those two carriers.
Yeah, but it's kind of odd to me that would involve here and there employees of Amazon and not the whole company. I don't know how that.
It all depends on who voted to join Teamsters.
But usually employees support each other across the country of a company. For example, if American Airlines pilots go on strike, they're going on strike all over the country.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
true.
throwing out an example. They don't go strike in Cincinnati, but hey, the guys in Miami are flying. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of odd, I guess, a way of having a labor dispute, a strike. So what are they saying? Those people are saying they haven't come to a contract with the
Correct. Yeah, they set
company?
a December 15th deadline for Amazon to come back with them with kind of a ballpark figure. We're going to move forward on contract negotiations. They're asking for more money and benefits, usual stuff that a union worker might ask for.
Yeah. All right. Well, be aware.
Yeah.
Be aware of that. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. For you Sandy Rios fans, she's going to be live with us coming up at the bottom of the hour. So we look forward to visiting with Sandy Rios, host of Sandy Rios 24/7, the podcast, ever popular podcast here on American Family Radio. Well, one of the things that we're most excited about and proud of that we here at AFA and AFR accomplished this year, 2024, is the release of the documentary about the founding of this ministry and the history of this ministry. And it's documented in a film called Culture Warrior. And it highlights the life of my father, who started this work in 1977. It goes all the way back to the mid-'70s, and I remember it. I lived it. And here we are all these decades later, still going strong, thanks to the Lord, and it's thanks to financial supporters like many of you listening right now who've come alongside and said, I believe in what you're doing, and here's a check to prove it. And that's the only way we can keep going with our ministry. Well, M.D. Perkins is the producer and director of the film, and I wanted him to be in a studio with us just for a few minutes because maybe some people don't know how to watch it, don't know much about it yet. Maybe you're one of those. Good morning, M.D.
Yeah, good morning. Good to be with y'all.
Good to be with you. Thanks for walking down the hall.
Yeah, happy to.
Walking down the hall so you could join us on the show this morning. So the film is out now and has been out for, 2 months?
Yeah, about a month or maybe a little over, but yeah.
Okay, how can people watch it? That's the main thing.
Yeah, the main way to watch it is to go to culturewarrior.movie. Culturewarrior.movie is a website. You can sign up a very brief registration, but you can watch the movie for free. It's just your name and your email address, I think, is the
So it's free.
it's
a
free
free
to watch
viewing, yeah.
online. And also, if you like DVDs, you can make a little submission or a donation to the ministry and receive a DVD copy. And it has all the information there on the same website, culturewarrior.movie. So
Well,
however you want to watch it, go to
Okay.
culturewarrior.movie.
as the son of one of the sons, I have a brother and two sisters of the founder, Don Wildman, and also as the current president of the ministry here, I want to thank you and your team at American Family Studios, which is a branch of the American Family Association, for documenting my dad's story because it had not been done. Well, we did something 20 years ago, but it did not. But the 2 more decades were missing, right?
Right.
So you guys went back and encapsulated the all those years, and it's really fascinating. That was a 3-year project, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I affectionately refer to it as the Eternal.
It was
The Eternal project that you guys worked on
Yes,
here. But
sir.
it took you what, 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years of main production, and then even 3 more years going back on some of the research and putting those pieces.
Give me 3
together.
things that stood out as you as the film producer. I mean, you're the one who were most
Yeah.
involved. You probably know more about my dad and this ministry than I do, as much as you studied it. Go ahead.
I studied it extensively. I mean,
Yeah.
there's several things that really stand out. One, I think just your dad's commitment to research
Right.
really stood out. I mean, in the early days, knowing that he needed a leg to stand on when he was going to speak to
Yeah.
advertisers or networks, that was something that was impactful for me as a researcher and kind of
Yeah,
bringing
Dad didn't fly by the seat of his pants.
That's right. And I think a lot of people thought that he did.
Right.
And so that element was really fascinating to see. I think also just the way that he was constantly misunderestimated and misrepresented in the media, I think is another thing that really stands out because
Did you say misunderestimated?
I
Is
may
that a
have-
word?
I don't know. Underestimated.
Brad, is that a
I'm-
word?
It is now.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll take the MIS.
Well,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
You did say that,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah, I did
just
say
wanted
that.
to know
Yeah,
if I
well-
could start using it.
Yeah, we'll just edit that
Okay.
out.
All right, go ahead. Oh, as a film producer, you're just going to edit it out.
That's right.
This is live radio, my friend. You can't do that. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Misrepresented.
Misrepresented.
Misrepresented. My dad was underestimated intellectually because he was a caricature for the media, right?
Yes, he was, and
Because he was a Southern preacher with an accent who
Right.
was a Elmer Gantry Yahoo.
right,
That
and
was
he's
a-
talking about television, and he's talking about
right,
money and
right.
all of these things that
Right.
he shouldn't know anything about,
right.
supposedly.
So he was present. So but Dad may have sounded like a hick, but he was far from it.
Yeah.
Okay. As far as I'm just listen. He graduated from Emory University in 2 years. What would have normally taken somebody 3 years.
Right.
And he worked and
Yeah.
had a young family. This would have been in the 60s. I mean, he wrote 18 inspirational books. He pastored churches. He wrote a newspaper column that went to like 300 or 400 newspapers across America back in the 60s and 70s. I mean, he was well accomplished, and he was a very smart fella.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and he was also, I think a lot of people's representation of him has been completely shaped by what they've heard on mainstream news and mainstream media over the years.
Right.
Even many Christians,
Right.
I think, have a wrong impression of Don as this reactionary figure,
Right.
who's kind of flying by the seat of his pants, like you said. But
Yeah.
to really understand, I think being able to put more of the context behind why he took the stands that he did
Yeah.
and what was happening in culture and society at the time. I mean, to me, I wanted to make sure that note was clear in the documentary, that we understood the problem with television, the problem
Right.
with pornography, the problem with the homosexual agenda. And so that, I mean, even people who lived through it and may have been participants in that fight, you forget some of the details of it over time. And so just to remember how widespread and rampant these issues were, how few people were really addressing them, and then for
Yeah.
him to step into the fray and really start to take those arrows so that others could step in and continue that fight forward, I think is really important.
So again, how can people watch the document? We strongly encourage you to go watch it, folks, so you'll appreciate better why we're here today, okay, and what my dad's message was to the country. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
culturewarrior.movie. Go there. You can do everything you need to do related to the movie. You can watch it for free through the website. You can also find out how to get a copy of the DVD yourself before.
Now, sometimes Dad did fly by the seat of his pants.
Well, I'm sure he
okay?
did. Yeah.
I'm not saying he didn't. Sometimes my dad would make decisions on what seemed like a whim, okay, and not 80% of the time they were right.
hmm
20% of the time they weren't, but that's human. That we're all human, right?
That's right.
So, but I wanted to ask Fred for just a minute, and Fred's told this story before, but maybe there are people listening who haven't heard it. This is a case where I want to talk to you, Fred. I want to ask you about when Dad hired you, because that was a case of him flying by the seat of his pants. Now you're sitting here today,
Yep.
so you're one of the 80% that worked out okay. But
27 years later.
tell everybody how that happened, because it's almost unbelievable.
Yeah,
When was this now?
This was 1996. I made a phone call
Okay.
because I was fed up with public radio in Canada, where I'd worked for 20 years.
Okay.
And I thought Christian radio appealed to me, so I made an arrangement, talked to somebody here to come down and have a look around. So
Were you living in Canada at the time? Or?
Yeah, this was living in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay.
So it's late September, October 1996.
Okay.
So fly down here. I'm just going to have a look around, check it out, get back on the plane, go back home. And I was shown around, met people in the hallway, nice people, talked to Bill Fancher, who had just come in
Yeah.
and kind of started the news service at that
You had to
time.
find Tupelo first. That was a
I had to
challenge.
find, yeah. I asked my father-in-law, where's Tupelo? Actually, I'd visited Tupelo.
Because your wife was from Mississippi.
Yeah,
so,
she's from Mississippi.
Yeah, I'm just.
But anyway, came here, and I was walking around. I was about to get ready to go home. It was like noon hour or
who
so.
was your host? So Dad didn't.
Bill Fancher.
Oh, Bill. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bill.
I just,
He was the news guy at the time.
yeah, he was the news guy at the time. So I was about to go to Sonic, get a burger, go home.
Yeah.
And he stopped me in the hallway. Come and see me before you leave.
Talking about my dad stopped you.
Yeah. Come and see me before
that
you
was your
leave.
introduction to him.
That was it. All right, man, a few words. So somebody directed me where the office was, and I go and sit down. I kid you not. You want to come work for us? And
That was the research.
we want a news director.
Yeah.
I said, all right. I just had a piece about it. Come to work. All right, go home, get a green card. Let me know when you get your green card. That was it.
You're doing a pretty good Mississippi Don Wildman accent there. Go
That
ahead.
was it.
Yeah.
That
was it. Now, I joke because that was the hiring process for some people. Here, Dad was the HR.
Yeah.
He was the founder, president, and he was HR. But at the time, because that's all he really knew, we didn't know anything. You'd have told Dad HR, he'd have gone, "What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
We don't need HR.
We don't need any HR. I'll hire and fire." So anyway, so what happened was you went home. But the thing about it was, now I guarantee you, though, Dad had read your resume.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding when I'm halfway kidding when I say,
Did a little research.
see, he knew who you were.
Yeah.
And why you were coming, and he wanted to talk to you. So he was convinced that God had sent you here, and you had the experience and the passion for doing what you were, what he had called you to do. So then you became the leader of our news department. You've been here ever since.
Yeah, my start date was June 1st, 1997.
Yeah. So
Been here ever since.
all right, you knew that. Did you know that story?
I knew parts of it.
Mark?
Yeah.
I'm always learning something new, though.
Yeah. Did you know that, Ray?
I had heard Fred tell it before,
Yeah.
and it's just perfect for your dad, Tim. He was both a visionary
Yeah.
and a very decisive man.
Yeah.
When he decided he knew who he wanted, you were hired.
Yeah, he was, and like I said, it worked out 80. I'd say probably 85% of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes not, but that was the way he pretty much operated, and anyway, the rest, as they say, is history, and the history is documented in video fashion in the documentary. So check it out. How do people watch it again, MD?
Culturewarrior.movie. Go to culturewarrior.movie, the website, and learn everything you need to know about how to watch the movie.
Amen. Well, that's why my dad was known. That's what he was known as culture warrior, servant of God, culture warrior, and he was he did what the Lord told him to do, and that's evidenced by what we see today here with American Family Association and American Family Radio. Thank you, MD.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen.
Have a safe trip back down the hall. All right. Okay.
Watch out for the Christmas traffic.
Yeah.
I will.
And you will meet much temptation at the kitchen table there,
Oh, yeah.
because there are people here who are bringing sweets every single day.
Yeah, I thought I smelled something.
Yeah,
in the
and then
hall.
they're wiped out by noon.
Right.
I asked Santa for new pants.
The people or the
No, the sweets.
Oh, the
I don't know
sweets.
about the people. Yeah. If you were wiped out by noon, that's
sugar it out.
yeah. We always joke here because if we have extra cookies or chocolates or
Yeah.
whatever,
Mhm.
I just say I'd take them to the office and they'll be gone by noon.
Yeah.
All I do is put them in the break room. I put them on the table. I put some on the table this morning.
Yep.
And Ray and
They're probably already
they're
gone.
gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
That's
We have
all you
people with
gotta do.
appetites.
Yeah. So
It's a fun place to be, you know.
yeah.
It really is, because we got all that food, and
Yeah.
it's nice.
All right, so you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. I tell you what, let's do this. We're going to take a break right here, and we'll come back and talk to Sandy Rios when we get back from the break.
And talk about Fonnie Willis too.
Fonnie Willis, yes.
Fonnie gets the boot.
She's in the news.
Fonnie Willis, the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia.
Yeah.
Gonna have to find something else to do. Huh?
And Donald Trump is already celebrating.
We'll be, yes, he is. And I'm sure he'll troll her sometime today.
Yes.
We'll be back momentarily. Stay with us.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
I picked up a mail order catalog the other day and placed an order. It was a simple process, and it never entered into my mind that I would not get what I had ordered. For all of the reputable mail order houses today have guarantees that the merchandise will be as described, or it can be returned for full credit. Time was when that wasn't true. Back before 1872, if you placed an order from a catalog, your chances of getting what you ordered, merchandise as described in the catalog, were slim. For up until then, deception and outrageous fraud were more the rule than strict ethical dealing. But in 1872, a man who later was to become famous because of the mail order business published his first catalog. It was a one-pager with 163 items listed. That man and his catalog were to change the course of the mail order business. By 1875, he had increased his catalog to 72 pages, and the 1875 catalog carried in it an ironclad commitment to his customers. That policy, which still stands today, read like this: we guarantee all of our goods. If any of them are not satisfactory after due inspection, we will take them back, pay all expenses, and refund the money paid for them. Later, that man included not satisfactory to include even a whim. The pledge, now commonplace, was unheard of in those days. And it wasn't long till his competition joined in line. They were dismayed by the move and felt certain disaster would result from it, but they had no choice. One man did what he believed right and best, and the others had to join in or get out. Why is it, not only in business but in other areas as well, that we are afraid to do that which we know is right and best? Why is it that we accept politics and other institutions as crooked and deceitful? Why do we think we have to do that which is wrong simply because everyone else does it, or because it's always been done? A man who goes against tradition and finds what is right can expect opposition. It's bound to come. But the odds are on his side that in the long haul, his method of honesty will prove successful. I can recall an incident when the Galilean went into the temple and upset the tables of the money changers. What had begun as a good service had become one filled with graft and corruption. But he dared to be different. He would not fall into line with dishonesty. And before long, that system he attacked disappeared. A person doesn't have to be dishonest simply because it's the accepted way. Every person can do what he knows to be right. It may not be easy, and he may not be accepted by his peers, but he will be right. And being right is worth far more than being accepted. Today, the mail-order business is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year concern, and it continues to grow at about 8% each year. The man who changed the mail-order business into one of respectability and honesty was a man by the name of Aaron Montgomery Ward. His company still does business today.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Psalm 139, 23, and 24.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on American Family Radio. Thanks for listening to AFR. Well, as you know, we have a very popular podcasting service, if that's what you want to call it. I don't know. That's not the right word. Podcasting page. Thousands and thousands and thousands, like in hundreds of thousands of downloads a month of our programs here on American Family Radio, and or our programs that are only offered as podcast are very popular. And Sandy's is right up there at the top. Sandy Rios, host of Sandy Rios 24/7, a 3 times a week podcast that you can download on demand. That's the whole point of podcasts, right? Download them on demand, listen at your leisure. And so Sandy travels the country sometimes and interviews people maybe you wouldn't hear in the mainstream news, but news and information and insights that we need to hear, and people have come to, like, for example, the plight of the J6ers. Mm-hmm. Sandy's covered that extensively. And so people count on Sandy to give them the lay of the land, so to speak. Maybe that's not often, as I say, in the mainstream news. Sandy joins us now. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Tim and gang. How are you?
Well, and we're not Venezuelan now. don't, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, not that kind of gang.
No, we're not that kind of gang.
No,
we're harmless. we're harmless. Where we are. So, Sandy, how long is it? Let's see, you've been doing the podcast now for what, 2 years?
Yes, 2 years in January, Tim.
Okay.
Seems like just yesterday.
I know, right?
We talked about me doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, Sandy, so if you want to listen to Sandy's podcast, go to afr.net, click on the banner, click on the word podcast, and then click on the banner with Sandy's picture, and it says Sandy Rios 24/7, and all her podcasts are there. Sandy, you're doing three a week, right?
Yes, at least. Sometimes I do 4. But mostly 3, Tim. They're very in-depth, and so it's Yeah, I'm enjoying
Okay.
it, but it's an interesting process. It's very different than live radio, but we've had some great guests, and we have
Yeah.
some great guests coming up next week. We talked this week with, I don't know if you know who Victoria Coates is. She was the national security advisor for Ted Cruz when Ted was running for president, when he was a senator. I mean, when he was first elected, she was just the go-to person. She's incredible. And then she worked for Trump in 2016 with his administration, and so we talked about all kinds of things. She has a brand new book out.
Okay.
Now I talked with you guys know that book Shepherds for Sale by Megan Bashan.
Yes.
Yes.
Megan
I
Bashan.
read about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Megan and I talked. That ran this week, and then we talked about Syria, all the stuff going on in Syria with Simone Ladine. Simone is from a very famous family. Her dad, Michael Ladine, is an Iranian scholar. So Simone, like in the spirit of the family, they're a wonderful family. Simone is now deeply working with the government, has become an expert herself, so that was
Yeah.
great.
Well,
And then coming up, Jim and Rosemary Garlow. Do you know Jim, Bruce?
oh yeah.
And
Oh, I
Tim?
do. I've known Jim Garlow
Yeah.
for a long time. Yeah.
Well, Jim and Rosemary, are all over the map all the time, and they are deeply involved in Israel, but also they spend a lot of time in the European Union. They just got back from Paris, and so many countries I can't even name
Yeah.
them. And we talked about what God is doing in the world, specifically in these countries. So that's fascinating. So anyway,
Absolutely.
a bunch of really, really good podcasts. I hope people will enjoy them.
Okay, Sandy, I need to know your opinion or what you've heard, because I've said on this program, I think day one, President Trump, I'm thinking he will, but he should release all the J6 prisoners from that Washington, D.C. jail that you covered. But, I mean, don't you think he's going to do that?
Well, I do. I will be devastated if he doesn't, Tim. And they're not just in the D.C. jail.
Okay.
They were initially, there was it's been 3 years now almost. They are collecting in that D.C. jail, and that's where they sort of suffered tremendously, and they still are, those that are there. There's still lots of them there. Horrible food.
Do you know?
conditions.
I'm not asking you for a specific number, but do you know, generally speaking, how many people are in prison because of January 6th? Dozens.
I wish I could tell you, Tim. It's like in flux. I mean, they're constantly arresting people.
Yeah.
And they set a goal this year of arresting 3,000 more. So it's very hard to keep track. And what I need to say more quickly, is that they dispersed them from the D.C. jail. There's still a lot of them there, but they got really strong there. I mean, they were strong support, and spiritually they were just, it was amazing. So that is really the central focus, because a lot of them are still there. And every night, actually, all the prisoners sing the national anthem together.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's 7:00 Eastern. Mm-hmm. But they are now dispersed all over the country and they're kept. There's a guy here that I followed since the beginning. I've never talked to him personally. I've actually met his mother. But he's been transferred to Coleman Prison, which is near where I live in Florida. And he's being treated horribly, Tim.
Yeah.
Because the jailers know who he is. They hate him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's really terrible.
Well, I know they and their families are counting on President Trump pardoning them, his first day in office. Because, listen, folks, we don't have time to go into each case is different with these people who are in prison for January 6th. But I've said this before, unless they can be on our own video physically assaulting a police officer, that would be the only situation. Well, not the only. That would be about it for me in terms of whether or not they should be released. And even with that, quite frankly, and this is my opinion. I'm one person, and I'm not speaking for AFA or anything. I'm just speaking as an observer. Even at that, with the way these violent criminals get out all across America every day, and I'm not for that either. But I'm just saying that, and we're talking about people who the vast majority of them just went into the Capitol building that are in prison. Okay, just entered, walked around. They didn't vandalize anything. They didn't harm anybody. Yes, or no, they shouldn't have been in there. But I'm just saying, you put people in prison for that for how long? To me, you tell them don't ever do that again, or maybe give them 10 days. I don't know, but this is ridiculous. This is political.
Well,
this is political persecution. That what's happened to these folks. Many of these folks, as Sandy is well documented, and there's been little or nobody to speak out on their behalf except for Sandy and a few others. Go ahead, Sandy.
Well, I was just going to say, Joe Biden has now he's not even out yet, and he's already pardoned probably. I'm just guessing without looking at the numbers in front of me, but something like 3 times as many people as any president prior.
Right.
And
right.
on that list are Chinese spies, drug
Right.
dealers.
That's
He
what I'm
pardoned his
saying.
own son,
Yeah.
and that his own son was in. They extorted. They got money from our enemies to do favors, policy
Right.
favors for this country. That's as from in my book, in my dictionary. That's his treason. You can, so he's pardoned his own son, and that to me. The problem with the J6ers, Tim, and I'll just try to make this simple and I won't go on and on. It's just that the evidence is there, the video evidence, and it was withheld. So when these guys went to court, many of them, there might be snippets here and there, but there's no context. But you know what? We have enough video that we have context now. And so anybody can be made to look bad in one video or one shot. I mean, one frame. But they have not gotten due process under our laws.
No, and the
they
reason
have a
for
right
that,
to defense.
and the reason that they've been treated differently, is because they had no one to stand up for them and defend them and help them. Because even Republicans, a lot of Republicans didn't want to touch that because they viewed that they were afraid that they would be accused of sympathizing with people who stormed the Capitol building, and they didn't want that. They didn't want that.
Totally right.
They didn't want that.
Spot on.
Spot
on, Tim.
So that left these folks with nobody, literally nobody to. Except maybe lawyers, and that cost a lot of money. I mean, and people like Sandy, a few people like Sandy could probably name 3 other people who were highlighting the plight of these folks while they were in jail. So I just hope it's all over and done with. Whenever President Trump, and he said he will, and I'm sure he will, just pardon these folks and get this whole thing, let them go home. Yeah, those who are in prison. Ray, did you have a question for Sandy?
Yeah, I want to move to the second part of this. Joe Biden. I mean, he has been issuing pardons and commutations left and right, and there's been some discussion about from the Democrat side. Do you suspect or expect President Biden in these last few remaining days to issue a pardon of some sort to Liz Cheney and the other people on the J6 committee who improperly used that committee as a way to attack President Trump and his supporters and those who were there on January the 6th? Do you suppose that President Biden is going to do that before he leaves office?
And let me add one thing, and just so people know, Liz Cheney and the Republican or the Democratic chairman, they got rid of every interview they did, every transcript, things that people never heard, defense of these people. You never heard. Secret Service agents, all kinds of people, they eliminated all of that. What they did in that show trial was give you only what you wanted to hear. They created a storyline. They hired a movie producer. That was a made-for-TV movie event. Anyway, Ray, this administration, whoever they are, because, I have trouble remembering we have a president still, but they have no shame. Mm-hmm. They have no shame, and they have shown that in their policies. They've shown that in their brashness. This is corruption. It's also evil intent toward their own country. Who knows what drives them? I think it's a philosophy that we used to call communism. I think that's what's driving this, and they believe that America is not worthy of being saved. So they're doing everything they can to undermine and destroy it. Will they, pardon when there's been no charges? I think they'll do it, Ray. Why wouldn't they? They have no shame.
Fred, got any questions for Sandy?
Yeah, we saw a video this morning, Sandy, going back to that day of January 6th. And we now know, because the Republicans have done their own investigation of January 6th, and we now know there were FBI informants. They're not calling them FBI agents, but FBI informants in the crowd. We saw a video, our own Steve Jordahl, and I think that's coming out of this Republican January 6th investigation, of an informant being put in handcuffs during the event at the Capitol. But we also saw later in that video the handcuffs coming off, doing high fives with the
fist pump,
all of that sort of thing.
Did you see this?
I'm not sure if you've seen that video, Sandy, but it goes to the level of corruption that's gone on.
I have not, Fred. I've been actually trying to have Christmas over here, but so I've not seen that, but I really want to see it.
Yes.
No, that is really, there are things like that. Oh, I mean, it's not, I'm stunned about that, but I'm not surprised, because remember that, I'll give you another example. Remember the officers who testified about how badly they were beaten and how they were hurt?
Yeah.
Those three men, Fannin, whatever their names were. We have video of I think he's from Central America, and his name escapes me. He's one of the three that were testifying. He talked about how he was injured. He just went on and on. I think he cried. We have actual video of him around the time he said that this was happening, walking around happy as a clam. We have a lot of evidence like that. It's just that the American people don't know about it yet. Yeah. And that's why I keep beating the drum.
Yeah.
It's horrible what happened that day. When you see this policeman beating, and this is not Roseanne Boylan. She was beaten by a D.C. police woman, beaten. And there was another woman in the tunnel, same thing. And her name escapes me at the moment. But if you see the video of her being beaten by a policeman, you'll understand why people reacted the way they did to policemen. That doesn't mean that nobody there did anything wrong. I can't say that. But I know, like, for instance, Jake Lang, who's in prison, has been for the whole time, almost since the beginning. He was one of those that tried to stop a policeman from beating Roseanne Boylan.
Yeah.
So it's not a clean thing. It's not so cut and dried. And I pray to God that President Trump does what he said he's going to do and just gives them all a blanket pardon and a new start on life.
Yeah.
These families have been devastated.
Yeah. I don't think there's any downside at all to President Trump for doing exactly what you just said. All right, Sandy, thanks so much for being on with us. We look forward to you mentioned, the upcoming guest on the podcast and the topics you're going to be covering. We encourage people to check Sandy's podcast out. The great thing is the podcast, they're archived forever, so you can go right now and listen to a lot of the past interviews if you want to, that on topics that Sandy has covered. Go ahead,
Jim,
Sandy.
can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Can I please? I've got a really special Christmas show that we put together this week, and I just want to, don't tune in on Christmas Day. Enjoy your family, but it'll go up Tuesday. If you like music, you'll want to listen to that. One last thing in regard to J6, John Eastman, through these many months and couple of years now of covering this, has become someone I consider a friend, and they're doing a documentary on what's happened to him. It's called The Eastman Dilemma. It's happening at Mar-a-Lago, January the 4th. And actually, I'm going to be part of that, not a big part, but a little part of that documentary. So I'm hoping to go down and be at that. I know it sounds like I'm bragging. I don't mean to. It actually almost makes me cry because because it's nice to know that you've had some effect. And I just thank God for giving me this privilege.
Yeah. Well, amen. Well, thank you, Sandy. Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you next time.
You bet.
Okay, good. All right, Merry Christmas to you guys too.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Is Sandy gone? Okay, right. She said she was having a Christmas special podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get. Did you? Were you invited to be on?
No, because I don't sing well.
Ray, were you in? I mean,
I was. I evidently my invitation. Maybe it was that Amazon strike or something. It's keeping it. I have not received it, but I don't sing either. So there.
Well, I mean, I don't sing well myself. I would have just liked to have received an invitation, and then I could have said, "Listen, I'm not in y'all's class, as far as music and singing, but to not even get invited,
it's tough, Tim.
And I've known Sandy a long time. It's hurtful, Fred.
It's hurtful. There you go. It's a good word. It's hurtful.
It's hurtful. Never even got an invitation. You think Sandy's mind when she thought about music and Christmas music? I even came to mind.
Can I be honest?
As a friend?
As a friend.
As a friend.
Just talk.
Let me let you down, okay?
Talk to
let you down easy.
Yeah.
It never crossed her mind.
No. Harsh would be, are you kidding?
You're not telling me anything I don't know. We're still waiting for somebody to emerge from our even the extended family that can sing a lick. Maybe they're my granddaughters.
But we must say Sandy has a beautiful voice.
Gosh.
Oh yes.
Wow.
Sandy's she has some CDs. She may still have them at her website, like from the 80s, 90s, and onward that she recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not kidding. Sandy Rios' voice. Now, how do I say this without sounding? I don't know. I haven't heard her sing. People's voices change over the. I haven't heard her sing in a while.
Right.
Okay. So.
Right.
I'm just saying. I'm getting in trouble right here.
You are getting.
Let me just say this because I was about
digging
to
a
say.
hole here.
I was about to say Sandy in her prime. Okay, and that sounds terrible. It sounds like she's not in her prime anymore. I don't know. I'm just telling you, she sounded like Barbra Streisand.
Oh well. Okay.
Wow.
Good.
Okay, so I'm paying the ultimate compliment in terms of now Sandy's politics and Barbra Streisand's politics are like
slightly different.
Babs will not be on her next
that's
podcast.
like worlds apart. But I'm talking about
No.
singing talent.
No, beautiful voice.
Sandy's voice. She reminded me, hearing her of Barbra Streisand's voice. Go ahead.
Gorgeous.
She just sent me a message directly and said you are invited personally to her New Year's podcast.
Oh, really? Okay. So I'll sing Old Enzyme,
Yeah, there you go.
which I don't
Whatever
even
you
know.
wanna do.
Well, I know the first verse like everybody else.
Yeah.
And we don't even drink. But everybody slurs that. That old enzyme or whatever. You know what it's called, Ray?
Yeah. Should old acquaintance be forgot? Whatever comes after that.
Right.
Are
Nobody
you
knows.
You're an old acquaintance.
That's right.
No. That's what everybody does right there.
Dear.
So, all right. So, all right.
You've redeemed
Yes,
yourself.
yes.
Yes, you have.
You've redeemed.
Well, I got halfway into that story and I was going, how am I going to
Right.
say this without
You
sounding
pulled
like,
out pretty. You just
without sounding like, Sandy doesn't sing
got
well.
out of that ditch.
Like she doesn't sing like she used to. I mean, that sounds terrible. Huh? I didn't mean it like that. I meant the CDs
Sounded
I've
like
heard of
Barbra-
Sandy.
Just stop with Barbra Streisand.
Right, I
That's
know.
the winner right there.
Yeah, all right.
On a positive note here.
I know. All right. Go ahead, Chris. What do you get? What's
Well, for
Bonnie
anybody
Willis?
for anybody that was listening around 10:25, we mentioned we were going to have a big update involving Fonnie Willis on a story you can read on our website, which is afn.net.
who's Bonnie Willis, Chris, for those who don't know?
She is the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney. Now, the story about her today is this. Citing what it calls the appearance of impropriety, a state appeals court today removed Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis from that Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and others. It does not dismiss the indictment, leaving the future of prosecution possibly in the next year. However, as even the Associated Press points out, and I quote, it is the latest legal victory for Trump.
Yes.
The AP never says things like that about Donald Trump, but they did in this particular case.
Okay, so the case has not been dismissed.
No.
The case involving the what do they call them, false electors,
Yes,
in
where he's
Georgia,
challenging the results
is
or questioning.
that it's up in the air if that will continue or not, because what has happened with this is that Fonnie Willis, the district attorney, who was overseeing the case, the appeals court or somebody
Appeals court.
basically they fired her from that job.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now her office, I guess, would have to figure out who's going to handle this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I thought her boyfriend was.
Well, she hired her boyfriend,
Yeah, who had no experience.
paid him a big salary,
Yeah,
and then they went on lavish vacations
a little
together.
bit of conflict of interest going on
A little
there.
bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Paid her boyfriend, who had no experience in this kind of law,
Yeah.
Yeah.
a lot of money.
And then
And she and her boyfriend then went on some vacations
together,
That's just a mess over there.
and
But
then in the midst of this, she went to a church there in Atlanta and then totally derided Donald Trump. This is while the case was still going on. So she did not have. And the other thing, it's not in these stories this morning, but it did come out because the lawyer for Donald Trump talked about this, is the number of times that Fonnie Willis, in the midst of this, visited the White House.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that looks terrible, to say the least.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know. I'm leaning toward this. This will probably just go away.
It will.
Just be dropped because Trump was just elected,
Mhm.
and he won the state of Georgia.
Right.
Yes.
And so, I mean, this case is you talk about old news. I mean, this just needs to be dropped, and they need to concentrate on violent crime in Fulton County, Georgia. How about that?
Yeah. Let's focus on the real crime.
Yeah.
There is another quote in here. The court said in a 2-1 ruling that this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice.
Right, and I wonder how that works because if she's disqualified, is she also the one who picks her successor to carry on this case if it were to be carried
And can
on?
they use the evidence that she
Yeah.
put together?
It's a good question.
I would be surprised if this whole thing doesn't just go away. It just drops, All right, we're going to take a short time out. We'll be back with more of today's issues and after the news, and we'll see you back here then.
All right.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
You're aware of how important it is to stay engaged in America's culture war. One way American Family Association helps you to do that is through action alerts. Here's how it works. Once or twice a week, we'll email you about matters critical to America's families, and we'll offer ways to take action. Visit afa.net today and tap the Action Alert sign-up button.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
This is American Family News. I'm Steve Jordahl. The Pentagon released its annual report on Chinese military and security developments, describing a rapid buildup of the country's military despite corruption at high levels. Florida Congressman Corey Mills joined Fox and Friends First, saying the new Trump administration has plans to keep China at bay.
The United States needs to continue to ramp up its defense force there in the Indo-PACOM region to ensure that we have the ability to respond to any type of aggression or threats. I know that one of the things that President Trump has talked about is not only increasing tariffs, but also economic pressures on Beijing.
The report also says China is on pace to build 1,000 nuclear weapons by 2030. Federal officials have issued a ban on flying drones in several New Jersey cities as more have been sighted in the skies over that state. Fox's Tanya J. Powers has more.
Federal aviation officials have issued temporary flying restrictions for almost 24 cities across New Jersey as drone sightings continue, deeming the area's national defense airspace. Each location has a 1 nautical mile restriction, including from the ground up to 400 feet. Unmanned aircraft are no longer allowed in those areas through January 17th, and the FAA says pilots who violate that airspace may be intercepted, detained, and interviewed by law enforcement. Restrictions had already been announced for the military's Picatinny Arsenal and President-elect Trump's Bedminster Golf Club. The ban comes as a bipartisan bill that would have expanded the federal government's authority to act on drones was blocked in the Senate. In New York, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
There's more than a government funding bill on the line in Washington. Fox News is reporting that Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky has declared that he will not vote for House Speaker Mike Johnson to retain the speakership next year. Asked whether he would change his mind, Massie said it would require a Christmas miracle. Earlier this year, Massie supported Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene in pushing to remove Johnson from the speakership, but the vast majority of members in both parties ultimately voted to spike the ouster effort. The chairman of the House Judiciary Committee says Congress needs to pass legislation to protect public officials from lawfare by political opponents. AFN's Chad Groening has more.
President-elect Donald Trump has slammed Manhattan Judge Juan Merchan for his decision to uphold Trump's, quote, guilty verdict in the hush money trial, despite the U.S. Supreme Court presidential immunity ruling. Trump called Merchan biased and a political partisan for refusing to toss out the case. During an interview on American Family Radio, Ohio Republican Congressman Jim Jordan, who chairs the Judiciary Committee, says there has been legislation introduced to deal with a rogue judge like Merchan.
Legislation that says if you have these state courts going after federal officials in state court, that the defendant has the opportunity to move those cases to federal court. So if you got like Alvin Bragg bringing a charge against President Trump and Fani Willis doing the same thing and others, the defendants in that case could say, no, we don't want to try it in some state court with some rogue prosecutors. You would want that case moved to federal court.
Jordan says he feels that this is good legislation
that would provide some protection for federal officials where you got these rogue prosecutors using lawfare to go after their political opponents.
I'm Chad Groening.
And workers at several Amazon facilities are going on strike Thursday after the company refused to participate in contract negotiations at a previously set deadline from the Teamsters Union. Vincent Perrone, the president of the Teamsters Local 804 New York, says the workers on strike are simply calling for better treatment.
They want a good salary. They want prevailing wages. They want benefits, health and welfare benefits, pension benefits, stuff that the average American person deserves. And that's what they're going to get.
Strikes are also taking place at facilities in Atlanta, San Francisco, and Skokie, Illinois. The Teamsters claim they represent about 10,000 workers across 10 Amazon facilities. And finally, the number of people killed and missing remains unclear 2 days after a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck the Pacific island nation of Vanuatu. Nearly 48 hours after Tuesday's tremor, the toll of 14 deaths, 9 of them confirmed by a hospital, has not been updated. You can find more news and information online at afn.net. For American Family News, I'm Steve Jordan.
As our nation faces a host of unprecedented challenges, it's important that we use the Lord's provisions to support conservative judicial nominees, advance biblical principles, and help faithful Americans contend for truth in the public arena. AFA Action is working at the federal, state, and even school board levels to promote critical policies to protect your family. But in order to accomplish our mission, we need help from faithful partners like you to reach our year-end budget goal. So please visit afaaction.net to give today. afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. It's Thursday, December the 19th, 2024. And I'm Tim with Fred and Ray. And joining us now for this next 25 minutes is our good friend Steve Paisley Jordahl. Good morning, Brother Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
How are you?
I'm well. I am well.
Okay, so what's your first story there, Steve?
Well, let's talk about what the Biden team is doing as they exit our country. The last couple days of their administration,
They're
they
leaving
have
the country.
well, the leadership of the country.
Okay.
The Biden EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has just given California permission to ban the sales of cars that run on gasoline.
California wants to do that?
Yes, starting in 2035, every car sold in California has to be zero emission. and they're going to ramp that up in a 10-year process starting.
No, they're not.
Well, they say
I'm not putting you down, Steve. You're just reporting the news. I'm saying that's nuts.
I know, and especially California. If there's ever a state that needs cars,
Steve, as a former Californian,
yes,
recovering Californian,
I am.
What happened to these people out there?
Oh my goodness,
what is going on? This is the land of Ronald Reagan in the 80s.
It was
70s.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's.
This is not going to hold up. This is just trying to preach to America that global warming is caused by the other 49 states, not us in California, because we're gonna in 10 years we're gonna have. They've already done that to lawnmowers, haven't they? No gas.
They've tried that. I don't know if that's been successful, but listen to this. Following along with California, several other states have said they're going to also jump into this banning of gas cars.
Who's that?
Delaware, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. 10 other states.
Are they going to do the same time period, 10 years?
Yeah, this is under the same rubric.
All right. I've been wrong before, but I'm not wrong on this one. That ain't going to work.
No, I don't think so either.
And excuse the English, it ain't going to work. And it's just pontification is all it is. They're trying to holier than thou environmentalism is what it is. And you can't do that in 10 years, even if you wanted to.
They don't have the power infrastructure to do it. These cars.
Now, that's interesting because, Ray, what this will do, and maybe this is the objective of the political leaders in California who would pass such a measure, and that is the car manufacturers may say, I don't know what we're supposed to do here, because what if this really goes into effect and we can't sell a gasoline-powered automobile in the state of California, which is the largest state in the country? What about that, Ray?
Well, I mean, who benefits from this? But their arch enemy, Elon Musk, and the Tesla. So they're going to – he's already the richest man in the world, right? So if you ban the gasoline engines, well, first of all, there's a lot of Americans just going to move out of those states. The migration to the Sun Belt is going to increase because people are going to say this is nuts. And anyway, they hate Elon Musk, and they're just going to make him richer by forcing people to buy these electric vehicles who maybe wouldn't otherwise do it. The whole thing, Tim, you've already said it's nuts.
Yeah.
This is never going to happen.
Well, it's also the factor that most middle-class people cannot afford these electric cars.
Right.
They can't afford them.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you force somebody who doesn't have enough money?
That's what they're trying to do.
To buy an electric vehicle. Plus, I think, Steve, you mentioned there's not the infrastructure out there.
No.
We had the story yesterday, they've spent how many billion
was
on recharging stations?
Like $7 billion for
how many?
It was less than 10.
Yeah, less than 10 stations. I mean, the country is not ready for it. Again, I've said this before. Hey, listen, if you want an electric car to go to the grocery store every now and then, that's fine. I'm not against electric cars if you want something like that. But this goes back to the COVID mandate. They're mandating the kind of car that you have to buy.
Also, what is this going to do to convenience stores? Because a lot of the reasons people stop at convenience stores is to fill up their cars.
Yep.
And then they go in and they buy, a soft drink and a candy bar or whatever.
Yep.
But they, all these gas pumps at convenience stores all over California are going to be out of business.
Good point.
Well, maybe not out of business, but that's going to be here's what's going to happen with that deal.
Yeah.
California is going to come back in 5 years from now, and they're going to say, we've decided to push this back to 2040 because it's just not feasible for us to do this in the next 5 years. Yeah. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Well, my question is, if Biden's EPA can do it, can Trump's EPA undo it when he gets in?
Yes.
Sure.
Well, then that's what's going to happen.
Well, now, hold on just a minute. This is a law passed by the state of California.
No, it's the EPA that gave California permission to ban gas cars.
Have they? Or have they not then banned them in 10 years? don't understand.
They are. It's confusing, but the EPA has given California permission to ban gas cars purchases starting in the year 2035, doing a 10-year phase-in. For the 2026 models, 35% of sales in California must be zero emission under the state.
Okay, it's already a law then.
State rules through September.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah,
you were going to say.
Well, it's not going to fly. The people of California are going to rise up in great revolt because, Fred, it part of it's what you said. People are sick and tired of government mandates of this nature. They're just not going to do it.
Right.
And some people, if California, first of all, friends out in California, we love you, but stop electing people like Gavin Newsom as governor. And maybe this wouldn't happen, and putting the leftists in control of your legislature, because there's a lot of great Americans out in California who oppose this, and some of them are going to leave that state.
There's already been a mass exodus of people leaving California since COVID and maybe even before because of this far left control of these whacked out people controlling the state of California. I call them whacked out, but I mean Californians evidently don't think so because they keep electing them. So, but I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. I texted him because he used to live in northern L.A., like the Malibu area, and I said I saw the fires in the news.
Yep.
And I said, hey, how far are you from the fires? And he said, well, I've been gone a year. Something
a long way from
the
fires.
I moved to Nashville like a year ago. I said, oh, okay. He said, but I mean, that story can be repeated a million times probably in the last 10 years of people. Look at the corporations. You mentioned Elon Musk. He moved his company from California to Texas, and that's been happening. California's been hemorrhaging with people and businesses going to Arizona, even Nevada, maybe not across the country, but getting out of those far left enclaves where it's really hard to do business without being regulated to death. All right, enough California talk. What's next?
All right, now let's go.
I wish they all could be California.
Cars.
Cars, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with that song. But.
Let's go to the opposite coast. New Jersey, the FAA is just throwing stuff at this drone problem.
Who's the FAA?
The Federal Aviation Administration. They have now issued a temporary flight restrictions on all drones over New Jersey between now and January 17th, 2025, to see if maybe these are just people that are flying recreationally. See if I don't know.
So when did that go into effect?
It's the notice is it is in effect immediately until January 17th, I believe.
All right. Well, do we know what's happened as a result? We won't know tonight.
We'll probably we'll have to know.
Is that still going on?
I think so.
Yes.
Like Northern Lights.
Yes.
Except it's called Northern Drones, right?
Right.
Northern Drones.
We got an idea. We got a TV series right here. Northern Drones.
The Northern Drones.
Any drone that's flying in support of national defense, homeland security, law enforcement, firefighting, search and rescue, or disaster response is allowed to still fly.
They're exempt.
How do you know who's who up there?
Well,
that's a great question.
Get out your binoculars.
Trust me.
All right. I don't know what to make of that whole drone story. I think if they were a danger to people imminently, something would have already happened. It may be some kind of military exercise, or it may be people trolling and just wanting to get in the news, so they're putting up stuff and saying, "Watch this."
Yeah.
So like somebody dressing up like Bigfoot.
Oh, sure. A couple of guys are out there in the field. And go,
they're going. They got their drones, and
that's right.
They're geeks. And they're going, hey, what's this? Well, this is going to be on the news tonight. That kind of thing, huh?
Oh, sure.
The size of SUVs?
Not all of them are.
Yeah, I know, but some of them are.
Some of them are huge. I mean, they're really huge.
Well,
I've seen the pictures.
It's a big. Well, you never know. These really smart sixth graders, maybe a science project.
It's a bunch of sixth graders
It's a science
doing a
fair.
science project.
That's right.
I got an A on my science
Nothing would
fair.
surprise us anymore.
And I got arrested.
All right, go ahead.
All right. I want to talk about a new documentary that's just come out from the Independent Women's Forum. It's called Kill Shot. The subtitle is How Peyton McNabb Turned Tragedy into Triumph. Peyton McNabb was a high school volleyball player who got struck in the face.
She's a girl.
A girl.
Yes.
Peyton is a girl who was playing against a team that had a boy playing as a girl. And this boy dunked on her, basically, slammed, did a spike right in her face. It knocked her unconscious for 30 seconds. She was diagnosed with traumatic brain injury, a brain bleed, partial paralysis, partial loss of vision. And they made a story. It's called Kill Shot, How Peyton McNabb Turned Tragedy into Triumph. Just a little, let you hear a little bit of the trailer from this, cut 8.
My first thoughts was, is she okay?
This is her mom.
And then honestly, my second, I was mad. I was furious because we all knew this was going to happen. Did I think it would have happened to my child? No. But we all knew. Everybody talked about it. Everybody knew something was going to happen. Something was going to happen, and it did. And I was mad.
It's hard for me to watch.
Yeah. What do you remember from that?
It was just very, very traumatizing.
So Peyton McNabb is now on the joining with the likes of the swimming gal from
Riley Gaines.
Riley Gaines. She's advocating for women in women's sports only.
Yeah, well, good for her.
Yeah.
This is another reason why the Democratic Party lost in November, and this is why Democrats, Rahm Emanuel, who was a big player in the Barack Obama days, former mayor of Chicago, he has just written an editorial for the Washington Post. Listen to what he had to say, and it's connected to what you were just talking about, Steve.
Yep.
Our language, speaking of the Democratic Party, our language and priorities have reinforced the aloof elite stereotype. With inflation stinging, school absenteeism skyrocketing, and students' academic scores plummeting, Democrats consume themselves in debates over pronouns, bathroom access, and renaming schools and adopted terms such as care economy to win over voters. It was a hermetically sealed conversation with ourselves, and we appeared much as we sounded, distant and detached, he wrote. Now, that's
Well, he's right.
He's right.
That's Rahm Emanuel, folks.
Yeah. He was Clinton's right-hand man, wasn't he, or was it Obama's?
Barack Obama and former mayor of Chicago. Listen, the people like this are speaking out. I'm talking people like high-profile Democrats saying, we're lost. You know, we lost, and we only have ourselves.
He's right, but I hope they stay lost.
We only have ourselves to blame. We've talked about this, Tim. Here's the problem for Rahm Emanuel. Unfortunately, there are a bunch of people who still agree with how the Democratic Party has behaved itself over the last 4 years.
I got a story right here about confab of DNC members last week in Washington. A significant group of them still want to see Kamala Harris run again in 2028.
Listen,
please.
I know, right?
Listen, when your enemy is in a sinkhole, do not hand them a shovel.
That's right.
No, do hand them a shovel. Let them keep digging.
Well,
yeah.
Yes. I think we know what I meant, but
Don't bail them out.
technically you're right, Steve.
Don't help it. Don't help your enemy when they're destroying.
That's what I'm saying. Is they're destroying themselves, and But the analysis of those Democrats who like Rahm Emanuel and some others, James Carville, been one of them. He's pretty well said this. Bill Maher, he said the same type thing. The Democrat Party and its leadership has gone so far wacky left that they no longer have the support of mainstream America.
Yep.
Now, they still have their states and their enclaves, New York,
California,
Illinois,
we've been talking about.
California. But if you looked at the map of the country, after the election, you will see that it's red in the vast majority of our. Now there aren't a lot of people in Wyoming, but I'm just saying that the Democrats didn't win Pennsylvania, which they always win. They didn't win Michigan, and they didn't win. Was it Wisconsin? This time either.
They won none of the swing states.
So anyway, but they until they get that figured out, that people don't care about pronouns, and the vast majority of people, even liberal people, don't want boys, dunking on little girls in basketball. I mean, or in other sports, and they're going to continue to hemorrhage. Yeah, I'm talking about the Democrat Party.
The other thing I think that this did is it brought Donald Trump into the mainstream. We're seeing a whole different Donald Trump than we saw in 2016 as far as how he's running his transition and he ran the campaign. And the media is even now coming around to treating him as a news person instead of the, Hitler, which basically they were
that
treating
didn't work for him.
No.
Well, we'll deal with it. I didn't like Obama being elected, but you got to deal with it. I mean, people elected him, Trump, over the Democrat choice, and now his policies will go into effect, and they can't scream at the sky every day, of how Trump is Hitler. People don't buy it. Heck, half the people voted, more than half the people voted for him. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't work. If you want to be critical of the things he does or says, that's fine, but don't overreact and act like it's the end of the world, because it's the little boy that cried wolf syndrome. Huh?
It's going to be interesting to see over the next few years, because we saw just before the election, the LA Times refused to endorse a candidate.
Yeah.
New York Times, what's going on there, Washington Post, CNN, all of these. So what are these news agencies going to do? Because they've had such a left-wing bias, such a pro-Democratic Party bias, they're losing money.
Well, they need to go back to being fair.
Will they?
If they don't, they're going to lose money. They're going to go out of business. But I don't even know, Ray, if they can recover their image or not. I'm talking about people like CNN and MSNBC, whatever image they had.
Look, I'm on my knees praying.
Yeah.
That Kamala Harris is the candidate in 2028, and then
You're excited.
Bring on J.D. Vance or DeSantis or whoever you want.
Right.
It will be a landslide for the Republicans in 2028. That's how awful she is.
Yeah, she needs to. I don't know what she needs to do. Can she sing?
She can laugh.
Well, maybe she needs to be on Saturday Night Live or something. I don't know. Anyway, next story, Steve.
All right. I want to introduce you to Will Duffy, who is apparently a small pastor of a small church outside of Denver, Colorado, but got caught up in a debate of whether or not we live on a globe or a flat earth. And honestly, there are people who will
you can see him on Twitter.
That this earth is flat.
Down a hill.
A flat hill.
Flat hill.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Maybe it's a different metaphor you could use there.
Maybe. But no, so this Will Duffy decided to take he took 4 flat earthers.
What were their names?
Yeah.
Well, one of them was
admitted to it.
One of them was named Geron Campanella.
I knew that.
I
knew he was. I've known it for a long time. He never, you know what I'm saying? Now I know for sure.
Geron's always been.
He brought 4 what they're calling globe earthers, and he spent $35,000 to fly down to Antarctica to see if the sun sets during the solstice. Now, Ray, you've been a pastor at a church before.
Yeah.
Would your tithing? Would your people have a problem with you using their tithes to?
It'd be the beginning and the end of my ministry right there.
He used the church money?
Well, I don't know if he did. No, he might not have. But
where did the $35,000 come from? Then?
I don't know. It doesn't say, but
it was a missions project, Ray.
Well, there you go. That's right. So they went down to Antarctica and did what?
Okay, so during the summer, like it is in Antarctica right now, the sun never sets. If you were to stand at the South Pole right now, the sun would just do a circle around you. It would trend about 4 or 5 degrees above the horizon all the way around.
Really?
Yeah. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's why it's always day. Now, that only happens if we're on a globe because it's round.
Right.
It wouldn't if it was flat, the sun would disappear over the edge of the earth. And so Geron Campanella was proven wrong. He was very dismayed, I think.
Is the pastor, whoever you talked about, is he a flat earther or
No.
is he a round earther?
He's a round earther. I hope he's a creationist.
So
A special variety.
the South Pole right now is
It's summer.
It's summer.
it's daylight all
the time.
Right.
24.
And the North
So
Pole is
dark?
Dark.
Right.
So is this the time of the year if you live in Alaska where they always talk about you got 2 or 3 hours of daylight?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh,
Above
okay,
the Arctic
okay.
Circle, you got none.
Steve, quick question.
Yes.
If you'd been a different time of the year, would that have worked just as well at the North Pole? If
Yeah,
you
the
could
same
get
thing
up
would
there?
happen at the North Pole, although I think it's harder to get to the North Pole.
I think it is. I think it is.
But yeah, the same thing would happen. And the moon, by the way, would
Well, by the way, one other question. You've got so many things on my mind here.
Yeah.
When you go to Antarctica, where do you stay? Do they have a Holiday Inn Express down there? I mean, where do you?
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
know that there are cruises that go.
Does Delta fly to the
No, but
Well, Steve's right though. They do. You go down there to Argentina, right?
Yep.
Right.
The southern tip of Argentina, and
Yep.
then you can get a
Cape Horn,
Huh?
That's right.
and you get on a boat, and they
Get on a
take you-
cruise.
you
I don't
get
know
a
where all they
cruise.
go.
Oh, they
Take
fly
a
big
cruise.
airplanes in the wintertime.
They do.
They fly big airplanes in there. They land on the ice, and people get off. Tourists, they want to see this.
Yeah, I'll just watch a video. I'm not interested in going. Huh?
Okay,
I'll watch
we'll
that.
send you a postcard.
Yeah.
So it's settled. The Earth is round.
Yes.
Okay. Phew.
Yeah. The Earth. That's right. It's settled. It's settled. now.
Finally.
Yes.
Now, next, the moon landings.
Right.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you, Tim.
Again, we're out of time, folks. Here. Thanks, Fred.
You bet.
Steve.
My pleasure.
I want to thank Chris Woodward, Sandy Rios, and Michael Perkins, and also our producer today, Brent Creeley. We thank you for listening. So today's Thursday. That means tomorrow's Trivia Friday. I think JJ and Ed are supposed to join me.
Yeah.
So we'll be here tomorrow. Have a lot of fun with that show. Thanks for listening to AFR. Stay with us throughout the day.
The words you are about to hear are taken from letters sent in by members of the Trinity Debt Management Program.
Dear Trinity,